Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. McKinley, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of some of the testimony that has been given, I'd like to ask unanimous consent that this article by Dr. Borak be included in the file.
Let me, I'm sure we'll accept it, but let me make sure the minority has taken a look at it. And you can go ahead and we'll make that request.
I think what Dr. Borak says in light of some of the comments that have been made here is that I think we've heard once again there seems to be an attack on the coal industry in West Virginia. I thought we were having a panel on modernization and how we work, but this has turned into a little bit on part of some of the folks one more attack on our coal miners in the industry. And what Borak goes on to his report said, coal mining is not per se an independent risk factor for increased mortality in Appalachia. Appalachians suffer disproportionately poor health and significantly higher mortality rates than the rest of the nation. The Appalachian counties with the poorest health are also the most economically depressed, the least educated, and those with limited access to social and medical services. So to try to connect that to mountaintop mining is a stretch. There may be a connection. I'm not going to dispute that. But I think we have to take other things into consideration. Smokeless tobacco, I didn't see, or tobacco use. I didn't see that as a chart to see whether or not that. I didn't see a chart about diabetes. Could that be affecting health and cancer issues with that? So I think we have to be fair when we're doing these kinds of reports, that we have try to be more unbiased than what I've heard in this testimony so far. Also, in Mr. Wasson or Dr. Wasson, your report, you talked about the sports fishing industry creates more jobs in the surface coal mining, and maybe it does, But I'd say the coal mining jobs that are being paid $50,000 and $70,000 a year are far better than the sports fishermen that may be in a $25,000 job. If we're trying to get these people out of poverty, we need to have good paying jobs, and once more an attack on the coal industry, because we've got counties in West Virginia and in eastern Kentucky that just simply don't have other alternatives. That's what they say. They're economically depressed, and to take away something that's a good paying job is really a threat to their livelihood. So I think we have to be careful about jumping to conclusions. I wish one of the proponents were here today to continue on with this discussion instead of skipping out. But you also raised a good point, Dr. Yarmouth, or Dr. Wasson, about Yarmouth. The Yarmouth bill is interesting, and I hope it does get a hearing. I think we need to have those kinds. We can't be afraid in Congress to talk about tough subjects. But at the same time, it was announced earlier today that we have 321 bills sitting over in the Senate. The other not being acted on. So I would say that perhaps maybe that's a good trade. If we're going to take up Yarmouth's bill, then maybe the other body ought to take up some of the bills that we have sitting over there that have to do with jobs, health care, coal mining, and the like. But let me close again with your issue about the fly ash, because I think your group and some of the groups that you represent were opposed to the fly ash bill that's passed out of the House 4 times. It's one of those bills that's sitting over, the 321 that's sitting over there in the Senate without action. It would have addressed all the problems that you've talked about, all the leakage. The fly ash bill, the legislation, the coal ash bill, took care of impoundments. It took care of dam safety. It took care of water leakage. All those issues were taken, but yet groups that you are engaged with oppose the legislation. I think it's hypocritical that you're coming here and telling us that we need to do it when we've done that. We passed that, but the Senate, the other body, won't take those bills up. So I hope that you can be more fair in your assessment in the future, all of you, as we address these issues in modernization. Let's stay to the subject matter. So are you telling me that Brandy Huffman, the DEP, is he's incapable of handling issues in West Virginia on DEP?
I do not in any way mean to impugn Mr. Huffman and
But
his
you've
ability
used
to
the,
do
you've
his
used
job.
the Freedom Industries tank, you've talked about the surface mining, all those issues come under his purview, and you're denigrating, you're running them down, and I'm saying, is that fair?
I'm saying the facts on the ground show that the goal, the environmental outcomes that we would expect are not being achieved, that the health of
Should he be
people in those
fired?
counties.
Should he lose his job?
That is, I do not have a position on whether or not Mr. Huffman should have his job. I am simply observing that if we look at just the science, just the environmental outcomes that we see on the ground in West Virginia, they are not being achieved, what we should expect. When people in southern West Virginia counties have the same life expectancy of somebody in Iran or Syria or Vietnam, there's something wrong.
I've run over my time, but I'd sure like to see it, because I think that, what is it, Vietnam is at age 36, 37 in Vietnam. I think the life expectancy is much greater than 36 and 37 in southern West Virginia. And I'm sorry that I've run over my time.
Gentleman's time's expired. I did consult with the minority, and without objection, I'd ask for the article authored by Jonathan Borak to be accepted into the record without objection. So ordered. The chair now recognizes gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 5 minutes.